رؤساء ثلاث يؤيدون فكرة المؤتمر
أن يعود حزب الله إلى لبنان.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Palestinian officials demand a global probe into the killing of President Yasser Arafat amid reports he probably died from polonium poisoning. Troops backed by Hezbollah fighters and other pro-regime militiamen retake Sbaine, a major rebel enclave south of the Syrian capital. And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrives in Jordan for further talks with officials in an attempt to salvage Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. First military investigation judge Riyad Abu Ghida has issued a court summons for Arab Democratic Party chief and former MP Ali Eid, days after he was charged with helping a suspect in the Tripoli mosque bombings escape justice. Abu Ghida ordered the questioning of Eid on Tuesday over his link to the bombings against Al-Taqwa and Al-Salam mosques in Tripoli on August 23rd. Military prosecutor Judge Sa'ir has also charged Eid and his driver, Ahmed Muhammad Ali, with helping Ahmed Mer'i and smuggling him into Syria. Ali is being held by the Intelligence Bureau. Abu Ghida also issued 2 arrest warrants against Ahmed Muhammad Ali and Shahad Shdoud. Shdoud, who was arrested on Tuesday at the Abu Diya border crossing, is charged with smuggling Sukaina Ismail to Syria. Ismail is charged with terrorism over her links to the Tripoli blasts. President Michel Sleiman has called for an end to the paralysis of constitutional institutions and says the country's capabilities should be put in a single strategy to defend Lebanon. During a ceremony at Babda Palace to launch a plan to eradicate child labor, Sleiman says Lebanon needs responsible constitutional institutions and leaders who consider the nation's interest as their priority. He also rejected the country's involvement in the regional crisis. In reference to Hezbollah's participation in the war in Syria, he said, and I quote, "Our political choices should restore our international relations, not provide excuses for the establishment of the environments that embrace terrorists, prevent the spying carried out by Israel, and lead to the policy of neutrality." Such options, he says, are adopted through the implementation of the Babda Declaration that has been backed by most countries. Sleiman further urged the parliament and involved ministries to take decisions on pending issues such as the wage scale and pension. The Parliamentary Telecommunications Committee will hold an emergency meeting on Monday to tackle the recent spying stations installed by Israel along its border with Lebanon, as Telecom Minister Nicholas Sahnawi considers the matter a violation of the country's sovereignty. A Safir newspaper quoted the head of the committee, MP Hassan Fadlallah, saying that the meeting will be held in presence of Sahnawi and a specialized team, in addition to the Foreign Ministry representative. Speaker Nabih Berri revealed on Wednesday that Israel had set up a number of spying stations along its border with Lebanon, starting from Al-Nakura, passing by Khiyam, all the way to Shibha. The biggest espionage station is allegedly installed in Al-Abad and Jal al-Alam areas, which are located near the UN demarcated blue line. Lebanese Forces MP Ali Kairouz has called on Prime Minister Najib Mikati to resolve the issue of hundreds of missing Lebanese and others held in Syria. Kairouz asked Mikati in a letter to set up a ministerial cell to uncover the fate of at least 600 Lebanese being held in Syrian jails and thousands of others who have disappeared during the 1975 to 1990 civil war. Kairouz says the ministerial cell should include Justice Minister Shakib Kortbawi, Interior Minister Marwan Sharbel, and Foreign Minister Adnan Mansour. Troops backed by Hezbollah fighters and other pro-regime militiamen have retaken Sbaine, a major rebel enclave south of Damascus. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says Sbaine was one of the most important rebel positions on Damascus's outskirts, and rebels in southern Damascus have now had practically all their supply routes cut off. The state television also reported the takeover, which the observatory says comes 9 days into an intense campaign aimed at cutting off one of the main rebel supply lines into southern Damascus. The watchdog says there are fears of the lives of civilians in Spain, as the army may well execute civilians and put the blame on rebels. Assad's regime has waged an intense campaign for months now to try to secure the capital by crushing rebel enclaves nearby. Washington has contacted several of its allies, including Belgium and France, for possible help in destroying Syria's chemical arsenal. This is according to a Belgian Foreign Ministry spokesperson who said the Americans held an exploratory working brief in early October with Belgium, Norway, France and Albania to see what capacities each might have to treat chemical weapons. Under UN Security Council Resolution 2118, passed in September, Syria's entire chemical arsenal, estimated at about 1,000 tons, is to be destroyed by June the 30th. Late last month, Norway ruled out accommodating a U.S. request to help destroy the arms on its soil, saying the schedule was too tight. The massive destruction operation is being supervised by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which is due to adopt a roadmap for the arms destruction by November 15th. Coming up next, Victoria's Secret unveils its $10 million fantasy bra. That and more after the break. Welcome back. Swiss scientists who conducted tests on samples taken from Yasser Arafat's body have found at least 18 times the normal levels of radioactive polonium in his remains. The scientists say they are confident up to an 83% level that the late Palestinian leader was poisoned with it, which they say moderately supports polonium as the cause of his death. A 108-page report by the University Center of Legal Medicine in Lausanne found unnaturally high levels of polonium in Arafat's ribs and pelvis and in soil stained with his decaying organs. The Swiss scientists, along with French and Russian teams, obtained the samples last November after his body was exhumed from a mausoleum in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Arafat died from an unknown disease while receiving treatment at a French hospital near Paris in 2004.
I was talking to David Barkley, the very important international forensic expert, and he said, yes, of course, this must have been put in his tea or in his coffee or in his water, and somebody who was near him must have given him his this. So it's so difficult to doubt, but unfortunately it's somebody of his entourage. Answer lies in the Mukata, where my late husband has spent his last 3 years under siege. And the head of the investigation committee, Mr. Tirawi, I'm sure is willing now to go further for investigation to know who committed this shameful crime, this assassination, political assassination of an elected leader. I felt that I'm mourning him again. I was in a shock. I felt the anger, shock and anger and huge sadness. And I was remembering his last days at hospital, how he was trying to fight. He has fought all his battles, and how difficult it was to fight his last battle.
Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has met with top EU diplomat Catherine Ashton ahead of talks on Iran's nuclear program. 6 world powers are dangling the prospect of easing some sanctions against Iran if Tehran agrees to curb work that could be used to make nuclear weapons. Talks resumed today between Iran and the United States, Russia, China, Britain, France and Germany. The last round 3 weeks ago reached agreement on the framework of what to discuss. The two sides now want to start a process with the idea of limiting Tehran's potential ability to make nuclear weapons in exchange for easing sanctions crippling the country's economy. Iran denies any interest in nuclear arms. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has arrived in Jordan after it was announced he will extend his Middle East trip by 1 day in an attempt to salvage Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. Kerry will attend a meeting with Jordanian King Abdullah II in Amman, before once again holding talks with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, this time in the Jordanian capital. Kerry is expected to discuss regional issues, the Syrian civil war and the Israeli-Palestinian peacemaking. Amman was supposed to be the final stop in Kerry's two-day Middle East trip, but in a joint interview with Israeli and Palestinian TV networks, Kerry said he plans to return to Israel on Friday for another meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Little progress has been made in the Middle East peace talks, which are supposed to produce an agreement by the end of April of 2014. Now for news around the world in brief. Greek riot police stormed the building of former state television ERT and evicted dozens of protesters occupying it since June, when the government abruptly shut the broadcaster. Officials say scuffles broke out between some protesters and riot police, who had cordoned off the area and blocked the entrance to the building. ERT's closure, aimed at meeting a target for job cuts set by foreign lenders, triggered a government crisis and forced sacked journalists to turn to the internet to broadcast news illegally. Thousands of villagers in the Philippines are being evacuated as one of Asia's most powerful typhoons this year is approaching. Typhoon Haiyan was already packing sustained winds of 215 kilometers per hour and could pick up strength over the Pacific Ocean before it slams into eastern Philippine province of Eastern Samar. Victoria's Secret model Candace Swain Powell has been chosen to wear the newest fantasy bra, reportedly worth $10 million, when she hits the catwalks next month for the lingerie's brand's new fashion show. This year's piece cost 4 times as much as last year's, according to the Huffington Post. Created by Lebanese luxury jeweler Robert Mawad, it features more than 4,200 precious stones, including rubies, diamonds, and yellow sapphires set in 18-karat gold. More on luxury items. A huge and rare pink diamond, which could fetch more than a record $60 million, is set to go on auction on November 13th in Geneva. Sotheby's says the pink star, which weighs 59.60 carats, is the most valuable diamond offered at auction, showing the oval stone with a top grading of vivid pink amid tight security at a luxury hotel. The Pink Star has just come back from a tour of major cities around the world, where Sotheby's have been drumming up interest in this exceptional gem from potential buyers. It was cut and polished from 132.5 carat rough diamond mined in Africa. The stone, mounted on a ring, was first sold in 2007, and the current owner remains anonymous. Twitter has set a price of $26 for its initial public offering of stock, which means the company's share can begin trading on the New York Stock Exchange starting today. The price values Twitter at more than $18 billion based on its outstanding stock, options, and restricted stock that will be available after the IPO. The pricing means the San Francisco-based short messaging service will raise $1.8 billion in the offering before expenses. On Monday, Twitter raised the price range to $23 and $25 per share, signaling an enthusiastic response from prospective investors. The company is offering 70 million shares in the IPO, plus an option to buy another 10.5 million. Move over Black Widow and step aside a She-Hulk. Marvel Comics is introducing a new superhero, a 16-year-old Muslim American girl named Kamala Khan, to reflect the growing diversity of its readers. The character, who will be the new Miss Marvel, lives with her conservative Pakistani parents and brother in the U.S. state of New Jersey. She will make her debut in January and appear in a monthly series starting on February the 6th. Although the inspiration for the new series came from a desire to explore the Muslim American experience series editor Sana Amamat says it is not about what it means to be a Muslim, Pakistani, or American.
It's to create a story for all those little girls out there who don't see a version of themselves, particularly in pop culture and in entertainment, because that's where they're looking. They're not looking in the news. And if they do look in the news, I don't want them to see what they're saying about Muslim Americans. But it's really not just for Muslim Americans, it's for all little girls.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now let me remind you of our headlines. Palestinian officials demand a global probe into the killing of Yasser Arafat amid reports he probably died from polonium poisoning. Troops backed by Hezbollah fighters and other pro-regime militiamen retake Spain, a major rebel enclave south of the Syrian capital. Finally, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrives in Jordan for further talks with officials. in an attempt to salvage Israeli-Palestinian peace talks. Those were today's headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Lena Tamim, wishing you all a very nice evening.
رؤساء ثلاث يؤيدون فكرة المؤتمر
أن يعود حزب الله إلى لبنان.